Yuan walked through the long hallway of the Galactic Council building. Her shoes made soft clicking sounds on the shiny metal floor. She carried a small bag with Earth's trade reports and treaty documents. Today was just another normal council meeting, or so she thought. The other aliens in the hallway moved away when they saw her coming. A tall blue creature with 4 arms stepped to the side and bowed its head. A group of small furry beings quickly pressed themselves against the wall. They all watched her with wide eyes filled with something that looked like fear and respect. One found this strange. She had been Earth's ambassador for 3 years now, but she still did not understand why every alien species treated humans this way. They were always so careful around her. They spoke in quiet voices and never argued when she made requests. She entered the Great Council chamber. The room was huge, with seats arranged in circles going up to the ceiling. Hundreds of different alien species sat in their special chairs. Some breathed different air, so they wore masks. Others needed special lights or heat lamps. The human representative has arrived, announced Vorthok, the council leader. He was a massive creature that looked like a walking tree with many eyes. His voice was deep and echoed through the chamber. Every conversation stopped. All eyes turned to look at Jiwan. She felt uncomfortable under their stares, but she walked to her seat with confidence. The human section was in the front row, with the best view and the most comfortable chairs. "Thank you, Council Leader Jiwan said as she sat down. "Earth is ready to discuss today's matters." Vorthok's many eyes blinked slowly. "Of course, Ambassador Jiwan, we are honored by your presence." The first issue was a trade dispute between the Zephyrians and the Christok Empire. Both species had been arguing for months about mining rights on a small planet. The Zephyrians were bird-like creatures with bright feathers. The Christok looked like living rocks with glowing gems in their bodies. "This planet has been ours for 50 years, screeched Zephyrian Ambassador Crix, his feathers turned red with anger. "The Christok have no right to mine there. The planet has valuable crystals that we need for our ships," rumbled Christok Ambassador Thorax. His gem eyes flashed with blue light. "We will take what we need." The two species began shouting at each other. Other council members took sides. The chamber filled with angry voices in dozens of different languages. Some aliens stood up and shook their fists or tentacles. G1 cleared her throat softly. "Excuse me." The entire chamber went silent immediately. Every alien turned to look at her with nervous attention. "Earth would like to suggest a solution," G1 said calmly. "Why? Don't both species share the planet? The Zephyrians can keep their settlements, and the Christok can mine in the empty areas. Everyone wins." Ambassador Crix's feathers smoothed down. "If the human representative thinks this is wise, then we accept." Ambassador Thorax's gems dimmed to a soft blue. "The Christok Empire agrees with the human suggestion." Just like that, the argument was over. The two species that had been ready to fight now nodded politely at each other. Giwan was amazed at how quickly they changed their minds. This happened at every meeting. When humans spoke, everyone listened and agreed. The next issue was about space traffic rules near a busy trade route. Again, several species argued loudly until Jiwan offered a simple solution. Again, everyone immediately accepted her idea without question. During a break in the meeting, Jiwan walked to the observation deck. She looked out at the busy spaceport where hundreds of ships came and went. Some ships were as small as cars, while others were as big as cities. "Ambassador Ji," a voice said behind her. She turned around and saw a young human man. He had black hair and kind eyes. He looked nervous and excited at the same time. "Yes, can I help you?" Jiwan asked. "My name is Do Yoon," the man said. "I'm an anthropologist. From Seoul University, I study alien cultures and societies." "Nice to meet you, Dojan. What brings you to Nexus Prime?" Dojan looked around to make sure no aliens were listening. Then he stepped closer and spoke quietly. "Ambassador, I need to ask you something. Why do all the aliens act so strange around humans?" Jiwan raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "I mean, they treat us like we're special or dangerous. When I arrived at the spaceport, the customs officers didn't even check my bags. They just bowed and let me through. The hotel gave me the best suite for free. Aliens in the street offered me gifts and asked for nothing in return." Jiwan nodded slowly. "I've noticed the same thing. In council meetings, no one ever argues with human suggestions. They seem almost afraid to disagree with us." "But why?" Dojan asked. "Humans are not the strongest species in the galaxy. We don't have the best technology. Our military is small compared to others. Why does everyone treat us like we're the most powerful beings in the universe?" "I don't know," Jiwan admitted. "When I became ambassador, my predecessor just told me to enjoy the special treatment. He said it was better not to ask too many questions." Doyen pulled out a small computer tablet. "I've been researching galactic history. There's something called the Terran Protection Directive. It's the most important law in the galaxy, but most of the details are classified." "What does the law say?" Jiwan asked. "The basic rule is simple. Harm to humans results in species extinction, but there's more to it. The law was created 200 years ago after something called the silence. All records from that time period are restricted. Jiwon felt a chill run down her spine. Species extinction. That sounds extreme. I know. I've been trying to access the classified files, but I need higher security clearance. As Earth's ambassador, you might be able to help me. Before Ji-won could answer, her communication device beeped with an urgent message. She looked at the screen, and her face went pale. What is it? Do-yeon asked. A human research ship has gone missing, Ji-won said. The Terra Nova was doing a survey mission in the Outer Rim. They found something and sent a first contact report. Then all communication stopped. Where? In the Outer Rim. Ji-won checked the coordinates. Korthok space. It's controlled by a species that doesn't belong to the Galactic Council. They're new to space travel and very aggressive. Do-yeon looked worried. If they don't know about the Terran Protection Directive, then they might not know the rules about humans. Ji-won finished. She quickly typed commands into her device. I'm sending a search and rescue team immediately. Let me come with you, Do-yeon said. If we find out what happened to the Terra Nova, maybe we'll also learn the truth about why humans are so protected. Ji-won looked at the young anthropologist. Something told her that this missing ship was going to change everything they thought they knew about humanity's place in the galaxy. All right, she said, but stay close to me. Something tells me we're about to discover secrets that the galaxy has been hiding for 200 years. As they walked back toward the council chamber, neither of them noticed the small monitoring device hidden in the wall. The device had been listening to their entire conversation. Now it sent a signal across space to ancient watchers who had been sleeping for centuries. The signal was simple. Humans may be in danger. Prepare for possible activation. In the dark spaces between stars, something very old and very powerful began to wake up. Captain Minho crawled out of the smoking wreckage of his ship. His head was bleeding, and his right arm hurt badly. The Terra Nova had crashed on a rocky planet with 2 purple suns in the sky. Strange crystalline trees grew everywhere, making sharp musical sounds when the wind blew through them. So-young Jaein, is everyone alive? Minho called out. So-young emerged from behind a fallen piece of the ship's hull. She was the team's botanist, a quiet woman who loved studying alien plants. Her clothes were torn and she had cuts on her face. But she could walk. I'm okay, Captain, she said, but I think my leg is hurt. Jaein climbed out of a hole in the ship's side. He was the engineer, always cheerful and ready to fix anything. Now his smile was gone and his uniform was covered in oil and dirt. The engines are completely destroyed, Jaehan reported. The communication system is also broken. We can't call for help. 3 other crew members appeared from different parts of the wreck. They were all hurt but alive. Only one person was missing. Where is Sunho? Minho asked. They found their pilot, trapped under a heavy metal beam. He was dead. So-young started crying quietly while Jae-young closed Sunho's eyes with gentle hands. What happened to us? Asked Jinwoo, the youngest crew member. 1 minute we were scanning the planet and the next minute something was shooting at us. I saw ships, Minho said. They looked like they were made of crystal and metal. The beings inside were definitely not friendly. Before anyone could say more, they heard loud noises coming from the crystal forest. Heavy footsteps crunched on the rocky ground. Strange voices spoke in a harsh, clicking language. Hide, Minho whispered, but it was too late. 20 large creatures came out of the trees. They walked on 2 legs like humans, but they looked like giant lizards. Their skin was covered with natural crystal armor that reflected the purple light of the suns. They carried weapons that glowed with dangerous energy. The leader was bigger than the others. His crystal armor was dark red, and his eyes were bright yellow. When he spoke, his voice sounded like rocks grinding together. You are the creatures. From the metal shell that fell from the sky, the leader said in broken galactic common language, you came to spy on the great Korthok. We are not spies, Minho said carefully. He stepped forward with his hands empty and open. We are explorers, from a planet called Earth. We came in peace to learn about new worlds. The red-armored leader laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. I am Victor, war chief of the Korthok. We do not care about your peace. You invaded our space without permission. We didn't know this was your space, So-young said. We can leave if you want. We don't want any trouble. Victor walked closer to the humans. His yellow eyes studied them like they were insects. You are small and weak. Your skin is soft like a newborn grub. How did such pathetic creatures build a ship that flies between stars? We may look weak, but we are intelligent, Minho said. Our people have learned to work together and build amazing things. Intelligence. Victor made that grinding laugh again. The Korthok have just learned to travel between stars, and already we are the strongest warriors in this part of the galaxy. We do not need intelligence when we have strength and crystal armor. Jaein whispered to So-young, I don't think they know about the Galactic Council or the protection laws. Victor heard him whisper, what laws? What protection? The Korth follow no laws except the law of strength. We take what we want and destroy what gets in our way. The war chief turned to his warriors and spoke in their clicking language. The other Korthoks surrounded the humans with their weapons ready. You will come with us, Victor announced. You will work in our crystal mines until you die. If you refuse, we will kill you now. Please, Soyoung said. We have families waiting for us at home. We have done nothing wrong. Your families will never see you again, Victor said coldly. Unless, he paused and looked at the humans with calculating eyes. Unless you prove that your species is worth keeping alive. What do you mean? Minho asked. One of you will die now as an example to the others. If the rest work hard in the mines, they may live longer. Choose who dies, or I will choose for you. The humans looked at each other in horror. They had never imagined anything like this could happen. In all their travels, they had never met a species that didn't know about the protection of humans. You can't do this, Jinwoo said, his voice shaking. It's against galactic law. When the council finds out, there is no council here, Victor interrupted. There is only Korthok law. And our law says that weak creatures must serve strong ones or die. Jaehyun stepped forward. If someone has to die, let it be me. I'm the oldest. The others have more life ahead of them. No, Soyoung cried. Jaehyun, don't. It's okay, Jaehyun said with a sad smile. Take care of each other, and if you ever get home, tell my wife that I loved her. Victor raised his energy weapon. You choose death with honor. For a weak creature, you show warrior spirit. The war chief fired his weapon. Jaehyun fell to the ground and did not move again. Soyoung screamed and tried to run to him, but two Korthok warriors grabbed her arms. The example is made, Victor announced. The rest of you will work in the mines. Try to escape or refuse to work, and you will join your friend. The surviving humans were forced to march through the crystal forest. Minho felt numb with shock and grief. Soyoung was crying quietly. The younger crew members looked terrified. None of them knew that high above the planet, ancient monitoring systems had detected what happened. The death of Jaehyun sent ripples through space itself. Old warning signals began to transmit across the galaxy. On Nexus Prime, Giwon was preparing the rescue mission when every alarm in the council building started ringing at once. Emergency lights flashed red. Computer screens showed the same message in hundreds of languages. Terran protection. Directive violated. Dojan was with her when the alarm started. What's happening? He asked. Jiwon's face was white with fear. Someone hurt a human. Someone killed a human. Her hand shook as she accessed her emergency protocols. I have to send the signal. What signal? The one that hasn't been used for 200 years. Jiwon typed in ancient codes that few people in the galaxy remembered. Proto-Omega. Human blood has been spilled. The message went out faster than light itself. It reached every corner of the galaxy within minutes. On 1,000 worlds, old machines that had been sleeping suddenly came to life. Ancient warning systems broadcast the same message. The law has been broken. Prepare for judgment. In the deep spaces between stars, things that had been waiting for centuries began to move. They were old beyond measure and powerful beyond imagination. They had been sleeping since the last time someone was foolish enough to harm a human. The crystal planet. Victor felt a strange vibration in the ground. His warriors looked up at the sky nervously. The purple suns seemed to flicker for a moment. What was that? Asked one of his lieutenants. Nothing, Victor said, but he sounded less confident than before. Just the planet settling. Continue, moving the prisoners. But deep in his crystal armor, Victor felt something he had never felt before. It was a feeling that all prey animals knew well, but which the mighty Korthok had never experienced. For the first time in his life, War Chief Victor felt afraid. In their crystal cage, Minho held Soyoung as she grieved for them. Knew that their friend's death had awakened something terrible and ancient. They didn't know that the Korthok species had just made the worst mistake in galactic history. They didn't know that help was coming. But when that help arrived, there might not be any Korthok left to punish. Do-Yun sat in the council's secret archive room, deep under the Nexus Prime building. The walls were lined with old data crystals that glowed softly in the dim light. Jiwon had given him the highest security clearance after the emergency began. Now he could access files that had been hidden for 200 years. What are you looking for exactly? Jiwon asked. She paced back and forth, worried about the humans trapped on the Korthok planet. The truth about the silence, Dojan said, his fingers moving quickly over the control panel, and why everyone is so afraid when humans get hurt. The first file opened with a warning message in red letters. Classified eyes only. Terran Protection Directive Origins. Dojan began to read aloud. 200 years ago, humanity was still new to the galaxy. Earth had only been part of the Galactic Council for 50 years. Humans were considered a minor species, not very strong, not very advanced. That sounds about right, Jiwon said. We're still not the strongest or most advanced. But something happened. Do-Young continued reading. The Zilithian Empire decided that humans were taking up too much space. They wanted Earth for its water and rare metals. A holographic display activated, showing a map of the galaxy from 200 years. Earth appeared as a small blue dot in a corner of the map. The Zilithian Empire covered a huge area with thousands of star systems. The Zilithians were one of the most powerful civilizations back then. Do-Yan read they had conquered dozens of other species. They thought humans would be easy to eliminate. What did they do? Jiwan asked quietly. Doyen's voice became sad as he read the next part. They attacked without warning. The Zilithian fleet destroyed every human ship in space. Then they used planet-killer weapons on Earth itself. The holographic display showed Earth being hit by massive energy beams. The planet cracked and burned. The blue oceans turned to steam. 6 billion humans died in one day, Doyan whispered. Almost the entire human race was wiped out. Only a few thousand humans survived because they were on space stations or distant. Coloni's Giwan sat down heavily in a chair. I never knew. They never taught us this in school. The galaxy thought humanity was extinct, Doyen continued. The Zilithians celebrated their victory. Other species learned not to challenge such a powerful empire. But we're obviously not extinct, Jiwan said. What happened next? Doyan opened the next file. The holographic display changed to show something incredible. Strange geometric shapes appeared in space around what was left of Earth. They were huge, bigger than space stations, bigger than most moons. The gardeners came, Dojan read. Nobody knows where they came from or how long they had been watching. They called themselves the gardeners because they take care of growing civilizations. Gardeners? Juan asked. According to this file, they are ancient beings of incredible power. They have been watching over young species for millions of years. They choose certain species to protect and help grow. The holographic display showed the gardener ships. They didn't look like normal spacecraft. They were perfect geometric shapes that seemed to bend light around them. Some looked like giant crystals, others like impossible mathematical equations made real. The gardeners had marked humanity as a seedling species thousands of years ago, Doyen read. They saw something special in humans, the ability to create and destroy, to love and hate, to be both gentle and fierce. But why didn't they protect Earth when it was attacked? G1 asked. The file says they were sleeping. The gardeners go into deep sleep for centuries at a time. They only wake up when something threatens their chosen species. Dojan opened another file. This one was marked the 7 days of judgment. When the gardeners woke up and found Earth destroyed, they were very angry. Doyen continued. They gave the Zilithian Empire one chance to surrender and make things right. Did the Zilithians surrender? No. Their emperor laughed at the gardeners. He said that humanity was weak and deserved to die. He told the gardeners to go back to sleep. The holographic display showed what happened next. It was terrible and beautiful at the same time. The gardener ships moved through Zilithian space, like a disease. Everywhere they went, Zilithian worlds simply vanished. The gardeners didn't just destroy the Zilithian Empire, Doyan read with amazement. They erased it. Every ship, every building, every person, gone. Not destroyed, but removed from reality itself. In 7 days, the most powerful empire in the galaxy became nothing. The only trace left was recorded messages that the gardeners sent to every other species. Doyan activated the old recording. A voice spoke that didn't sound like any living creature. It was like music and mathematics and the sound of stars being born all at once. We are the gardeners, the voice said. Humanity is under our protection. They are our chosen seedlings, marked for growth and greatness. Any species that harms humans will follow the Zilithians into the void. This is not a threat. This is a promise. The recording ended. Jiwan and Doyan sat in silence for a long moment. After that, Doyan continued reading. The gardeners helped the surviving humans rebuild. They gave them new technology and helped them establish new colonies. Then they went back to sleep. Where do they sleep? Jiwan asked. Nobody knows. But they left monitoring stations all over the galaxy. The stations watch for any harm to humans. If someone hurts a human, the stations wake the gardeners up. Jiwan's communication device beeped. She looked at it and her face went pale. The rescue ships have reached Korthok space. They're detecting massive energy readings. What kind of energy readings? The same kind that were recorded 200 years ago during the silence. Meanwhile, on the Korthok planet, strange things were happening. War Chief Victor stood on the balcony of his crystal palace, looking up at the sky with growing fear. The two purple suns were flickering like dying candles. Sometimes they would dim almost to nothing, then suddenly flare bright again. War Chief, said his Lieutenant Gorthak. The crystal mines are reporting problems. The mining equipment keeps breaking down for no reason. And the weapons, Victor asked, many of them have stopped working. The energy crystals are cracking by themselves. Victor looked at his own crystal armor. Small cracks were appearing in the red crystals. His armor had been passed down from his father and grandfather. It had never shown any damage before. In the crystal mines, Minho and the other human prisoners noticed the changes. The Korthok guards seemed nervous and afraid. They kept looking at the sky and talking in worried voices. Something is happening. Soyoung whispered to Minho. Can you feel it? The air feels different. Minho nodded. There was a strange vibration in the ground, so faint he could barely sense it. It was like the planet itself was holding its breath. Above the planet, in the darkness of space, reality began to change. The stars started moving in patterns that should have been impossible. Space itself seemed to ripple like water. Then the first Gardner construct appeared. It was massive beyond imagination. The entire Korthok fleet would have looked like insects next to it. Its shape hurt to look at, angles that shouldn't exist, surfaces that reflected light that wasn't there. More constructs emerged from the impossible spaces between dimensions. They arranged themselves around the Korthok planet in perfect geometric patterns. On his balcony, Victor fell to his knees. His crystal armor was cracking apart piece by piece. For the first time in his life, the mighty warchief understood what it meant to be helpless. "What are they?" "Hey," Korthok whispered, staring at the sky. "Judgment," Victor said quietly. "We killed something we should not have killed." In the mines below, Minho felt a strange warmth wash over him. The fear and pain he had carried since Jaeyoon's death began to fade. Somehow, he knew that help had arrived, but as he looked at the terrified Korthok guards, he wondered if help had come too late for everyone else. Seo Yoon stared at her computer screen in disbelief. She was the chief physicist on the rescue ship New Hope, racing toward Korthok space to save the human prisoners. The energy readings she was seeing made no sense. "Captain Taijin," she called, "out, you need to see this." Captain Taijin walked over to her station. He was a calm man who had served in the Earth fleet for 20 years, but when he saw Seo Yoon's readings, his face went white. "Those energy signatures, .. double quotes," he whispered. "They're bigger than entire star systems. And they're not ships," Seo said. "Ships have engines, life support, weapon systems, these things, ... They don't follow any laws of physics, I know." Jiwon and Doyeon were also on the New Hope. They had insisted on coming to help rescue the Terra Nova crew. Now they stood behind Seo Yoon, watching the impossible readings on her screen. "Are those the Gardeners?" Doyeon asked quietly. "They have to be," Jiwon replied. "Nothing else could create energy patterns like that." Hyunwoo, the youngest member of the rescue team, pointed out the window. "Look, you can see them now." Everyone rushed to the observation deck. In the distance, near the Korthok planet, they could see shapes that made their eyes hurt to look at. The constructs were so large that they blocked out stars. They moved in perfect geometric patterns that seemed to make space itself bend around them. "My God," Captain Taijin breathed. "Those things are the size of moons." On the Korthok planet below, Warchief Victor knew his species was doomed. His crystal palace was cracking apart. His armor had completely fallen off in broken pieces. All around the planet, Korthok cities were experiencing the same thing. Their crystal technology was failing everywhere. Warchief Lieutenant Korth ran into the throne room. "The human prisoners. Maybe if we release them, it's too late," Victor said sadly. "I have doomed our entire race. The moment I killed that human, I signed the death warrant for every Korthok who ever lived." In the crystal mines, the human prisoners felt the planet shaking, but strangely, they felt safe. The vibrations in the ground didn't hurt them. Instead, they felt like gentle hands protecting them from harm. Minho looked up as cracks appeared in the mine ceiling. But instead of rocks falling down, beams of soft light came through the cracks. The light touched him and Soyoung and the other humans, healing their wounds and taking away their pain. "What's happening?" Soyoung asked. She felt better than she had in days. "I think we're being rescued," Minho said. "But not by any rescue team we know." The Korthok guards in the mines were not so lucky. Their crystal weapons cracked and fell apart, their armor split and crumbled. They looked at the humans with fear and confusion, not understanding why the strange forces were helping their prisoners but destroying everything. One young Korthok guard named Sketh approached Minho carefully. "Human," he said in broken common language. "What are those things in the sky? What is happening to us?" Minho looked at the young alien with sympathy. Sketh was probably the same age as Hyunwoo back on the rescue ship. He had probably never made any decisions about killing humans. He was just following orders. "Your leaders made a terrible mistake," Minho said gently. "They hurt my friend. They didn't know that humans are protected by very powerful beings. Protected, but you are so small and weak. Size and strength don't matter to the beings protecting us. They are older than our civilizations. They have power beyond imagination." Sketh looked terrified. "Will they kill us all?" Minho wanted to lie and say everything would be okay, but he had read the historical files. He knew what happened to the Zilithians. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I think they will." Above the planet, the Gardener constructs began their work. They didn't attack with weapons or explosions. Instead, they simply edited reality. The first thing to disappear was the Korthok space fleet. One moment, dozens of crystal warships were orbiting the planet. The next moment, the ships were simply gone. Not destroyed, gone, as if they had never existed. On the rescue ship, Seo Yoon watched her instruments in amazement and horror. "Korthok ships just vanished," she reported. "Not exploded, not disabled. They're just ... not there anymore." "Can you scan the planet's surface?" Captain Taijin asked. "I'm trying, but there's so much energy interference." Seo Yoon adjusted her controls. "Wait, I'm getting something. There are still life signs on the planet, but they're getting weaker." On the planet below, Entire Korthok cities began to fade away. Buildings became transparent like ghosts, then disappeared. Completely, the millions of Korthok living in those cities vanished with them. But the process wasn't random. The gardeners worked with careful precision. They started with the military bases and government buildings. Then they moved to the weapons factories and training camps. The constructs were systematically removing everything connected to war and violence from Korthok civilization. Victor stood in his crumbling palace and watched his people disappear. But strangely, he felt no anger toward the humans or their protectors. He understood now that he had brought this fate on his own species. I should have listened, he said to himself. I should have learned about the galaxy before acting like a fool. The palace began to fade around him. As his body started to become transparent, Victor saw something that gave him a small measure of peace. Through the dissolving walls, he could see the crystal mines where the human prisoners were held. The humans were glowing with protective light. They were rising up from the mines, lifted by invisible forces. Even from far away, Victor could see that they were unharmed and safe. At least the innocents will survive, he whispered as he faded away. In the mines, Minho felt himself being lifted by gentle hands made of light. Around him, Soyang and the other human survivors floated upward through the cracking ceiling. They passed through solid rock as if it wasn't there. Young Sketh reached out toward Minho as the human was lifted away. I'm sorry, the Korthok guard called out. I'm sorry for what we did. Minho stretched out his hand toward Sketh, wishing he could help the young alien. But the forces protecting humans were not interested in saving Korthok lives. Sketh faded away, along with the rest of his species. The humans found themselves in a chamber made of pure light. They couldn't see walls or floors, but they felt completely safe. Strange music filled the air, sounds like mathematical equations being sung by the stars themselves. A voice spoke to them, the same voice Dojan had heard in the old recordings. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. You are safe now, children of Earth, the voice said. The ones who harmed you have been removed. You will be returned to your people. Wait, Minho called out. The Korthok who hurt us, some of them were just following orders. Some of them were sorry for what they did. Their sorrow does not undo the death of your friend. The voice replied, the law is clear. Those who harm humans must be removed, so that others learn not to make the same mistake. But what about mercy? Soyang asked. What about forgiveness? There was a long pause. Then the voice spoke again, and it sounded almost sad. We are gardeners, not judges. We protect our seedlings so they can grow. We remove threats so they cannot harm our chosen ones again. We do not understand mercy or forgiveness. We only understand protection. The chamber of light began to move. The humans felt themselves being carried through space at impossible speeds. Through the transparent walls, they could see the Korthok planet shrinking behind them, where millions of Korthok had lived just hours before. Now there was only an empty world of crystal forests and silent cities. An entire civilization had been erased as easily as erasing words from paper. On the rescue ship, Captain Taijin received an impossible sensor reading. Something is approaching us, he announced. It's the missing humans. They're being carried in some kind of energy field. Moments later, the Terra Nova survivors materialized in the ship's cargo bay, surrounded by fading light. They were completely healed and unharmed, but their eyes held a sadness that would never fully go away. Giwan rushed to embrace Minho. Goodness, you're safe. Are we? Minho asked quietly. Are any of us really safe when we're protected by beings who can erase entire species without a second thought? As the rescue ship turned toward home, none of them looked back at the empty Korthok world, but they all knew they would never forget what they had witnessed. The galaxy was safe for humans once again, but the price of that safety was higher than anyone wanted to pay. 3 months had passed since the Korthok extinction. Dojin sat in a quiet coffee shop on Nexus Prime, interviewing the survivors of the Terra Nova. He was writing a report about what happened, but every conversation left him feeling more troubled. Tell me about the young Korthok guard, Doyan said to Minho, the one who apologized. Minho stirred his coffee slowly. His hands were steady now, but his eyes still held deep sadness. His name was Sketh. He couldn't have been older than 20 in human years. When he realized what his people had done, he tried to help us. Did he know about the protection law? No, none of them did. They were isolated from the rest of the galaxy. Sketh was just a young soldier following orders from his leaders. Doyan wrote notes on his tablet. How do you feel about what happened to him? Minho was quiet for a long time. Jayan was my friend. He died trying to protect us. Part of me wanted the Korthok to pay for that. But when I saw Sketh disappear, when I saw the fear in his eyes, I realized that revenge doesn't bring back the dead, it just creates more death. Across the space station, Soyoung was in her new laboratory. She had been given the best research facility on Nexus Prime, with unlimited funding for her botanical studies. But instead of studying living plants, she spent her time with pressed flowers and dried seeds. These are from the crystal forests. Of the Korthok world, she explained to her assistant, a young Zephyrian named Krita. They were beautiful plants that sang in the wind. Now they're extinct, just like the people who lived among them. Krita looked at the preserved specimens, sadly. Dr. Soyang, why do you keep these dead plants? Because someone should remember them, Soyang said. The Korthok made a terrible mistake, but their world had wonders too. These plants had nothing to do with what happened to us. They died just because they lived on the wrong planet. She opened another case filled with samples from the Zilithian worlds, planets that had been empty for 200 years. The gardeners don't just remove the people who hurt humans, they remove everything. The art, the music, the knowledge, the innocent life forms. Entire ecosystems disappear. Back on Earth, Heinwu had returned to his family in Seoul. He tried to go back to his normal life, but he couldn't forget what he had witnessed. He started having nightmares about geometric shapes that erased civilizations. His sister Minji found him sitting by the window one evening, staring at the stars. "You've been different since you came back from space," she said. "What happened out there?" Heinwu wanted to tell her the truth, but how could he explain it? How could he say that humans were protected by beings so powerful they could delete entire species from existence? "I learned something about humanity that I wish I didn't know," he said finally. "What do you mean?" "We're not as innocent as we think we are, Minji. Our safety comes at a terrible cost. Every time someone hurts a human, billions of innocent beings pay the price." On Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council held an emergency session. For the first time in 200 years. They were discussing the Terran Protection Directive openly. Ambassador Jawan stood before the assembled aliens. She could see fear in every eye, tentacle, and optical sensor in the chamber. "The Korthok incident has raised important questions," she began, "questions about justice, mercy, and the responsibility that comes with protection." Council leader, Vorthok spoke carefully. "Ambassador Jawan, we understand that humans did not choose to have such powerful protectors, but their actions affect the entire galaxy. What are you asking us to do?" Jiwon replied. "Perhaps," suggested Ambassador Threx, of the Andromedans, "humans could contact these gardeners, ask them to show mercy to species that harm humans out of ignorance, not malice." "We've tried," Giwan admitted. "After the Korthok extinction, we sent messages to every monitoring station we could find. We asked the gardeners to consider rehabilitation instead of extinction for future violations. And their response? Nothing. They don't respond to human communications. As far as we can tell, they made their decision about protecting us thousands of years ago, and they're not interested in our opinions about their methods." Dojan had been working on a solution. He stood up in the council chamber. "I propose that we create a new department within the Galactic Council, a first contact division, that makes sure every species learns about the Terran Protection Directive before they encounter humans." "That's already our policy," Vorthok pointed out. "But it's not enough," Dojan argued. "We need active outreach. We need to find isolated species before they accidentally make contact with humans. We need to educate them about the consequences of harming any human, no matter how minor the incident." Ambassador Crix of the Zephyrians ruffled his feathers nervously. "But what about species that are naturally aggressive? What about cultures that see violence as honorable? Are we supposed to change their entire civilization just to protect humans? If the alternative is extinction," Gaiwan said quietly, "then, yes, that's exactly what we're supposed to do." The council chamber fell silent. Everyone understood the terrible logic of the situation. Humanity's protection had created a galaxy where entire civilizations had to change their nature or risk being erased from existence. Months later, Doyan published his report. He called it "The Burden of Unwanted Protection: How Humanity's Safety Shapes Galactic Civilization." The report spread throughout the galaxy, translated into thousands of languages. It explained the history of the gardeners, the fate of the Zil and Korthok, and the moral questions raised by humanity's protected status. But the most powerful part was the final section, written by the Terra Nova survivors themselves. "We are alive today because ancient beings decided to protect our species. We did not ask for this protection, and we cannot control it. But we have a responsibility to use our protected status wisely. We propose that humanity dedicate itself to preventing the conflicts that trigger our protection. If we cannot control the gardeners, we must work twice as hard to ensure they never need to act again. We remember Jayan, who died bravely trying to protect his friends. We also remember Sketh, the young Korthok who showed remorse for his people's actions. Both deserved to live, but only one could be saved by the forces that watch over us. This is the price of our safety, knowing that our protection comes at the cost of others' existence. We must carry this burden and work to make ourselves worthy of it." On a space station in the Outer Rim, Soyoung finished setting up her memorial garden. She had collected samples from every extinct world she could find, not just the Korthok and Zilithian worlds, but dozens of other planets where species had vanished for breaking the galactic law. Each plant and flower represented a lost civilization. Visitors to the garden could read about the species that once lived, the mistakes they made, and the worlds that would never bloom again. At the center of the garden stood a simple memorial stone with two names, J.N. Kim, human engineer, and Sketh Korthok, guard. Below their names was a message, different species, same tragedy. May their deaths teach us to choose understanding over violence. Minho often visited the garden. He had become the galaxy's leading expert on first contact protocols, working to ensure that no species would ever again harm humans out of ignorance. But late at night, when the station was quiet, he would sit by the memorial stone and wonder if they were doing enough. Somewhere in the dark spaces between stars, the gardeners continued their eternal watch. They were patient and powerful and utterly without mercy, and humanity continued to live under their protection, safe in the knowledge that no one would dare to hurt them, and haunted by the knowledge of what happened to those who tried. The galaxy had learned its lesson well. Humans were untouchable, protected by forces beyond imagination. The question that kept Minho awake at night was simple: was the price of that protection worth paying? As he looked up at the stars, he knew that question would haunt humanity for as long as the gardeners watched over them. Some burdens, once accepted, could never be put down.